Well, the University of Minnesota's new president says the school is ready to meet the challenges facing higher education. Joan Gable was formally inaugurated as the U's 17th president today. She's the first woman president in the school's 168-year history. After the ceremony, she took a celebratory walk through campus to the steps at Northrop Auditorium. And in her speech, Gable talked about the pressure around the price of higher education, saying the school is committed to controlling costs.
An excellence that values accessibility and affordability. An excellence that develops and graduates learners with the skills they need to maximize their potential throughout their lives in a rapidly changing world.
Before coming to Minnesota, Gable was the provost at the University of South Carolina. She signed a 5-year contract with the U.